We are CEOs, executives, educators, and professionals from all sectors of society who support the global expansion of betterment in the world through joy and joyily. I'm your host, Cheryl Lynn, founder of the Chair of Joy Experience. Together, we have developed the World Council of Joy, and our council invites CEOs and innovators from impactful organizations to the Joyly podcast. We showcase how generous, bold, and fully engaged they are in their work and what a culture of joy is to them. Today, we have the pleasure of having Nan and Harold Klein on the show. Nan and Harold Klein, a few years ago, decided to create some compelling program demonstrating the magic of the human spirit in overcoming life's trials and realizing accomplishments. The goal? Bring viewers from tears to cheers with an appreciation of the entrepreneurial behavior. The documentary they created is called Trauma to Triumph. Nan was one of the first female executives at the International Bank Manufacturers Hanover. Harold was an entrepreneur at age 7. Together, this duo built a video production company that has now produced over 4,500 videos and counting. Over the years, this incredible duo met Bernie Goldhirsch as the visionary of Inc. magazine. The world of entrepreneurial communications blossomed for their company, Teletime. The productions has allowed them to interview hundreds of some of the most exciting founders in the world. Welcome, Nan and Harold Klein.
Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning, Nan. Good morning, Harold. How are you today?
Morning.
I've been looking forward to this show for so long, so I'm very excited to have you here. You were referred to me by my good friend Michael Bees, and so we have learned recently of the movie that you're working on, which is Trauma to Triumph. So I'm excited to talk to you about that in just a minute. But as you know, the world is a little bit upside down, not too much, but a little maybe. And I think just doing some evaluation on your work over the years and what it is that we focus on, which is when we give more attention to something that feels good, right, that we get more of what feels good. So over the years, you have done so much amazing video in your work in Teletime Video, and you've had clients, MasterCard, American Express, Apple, the National Academy Foundation, the Charles Penzone Salon, Children's Place. So I just want to let people know that you've done a lot of work in a lot of genres. So what has been the thing that you've noticed as a sort of thread between all of them? I feel hope. What is it that you guys see? Harold, you go first.
Well, I think that there's a thread of persuasion, and that persuasion can find its destiny in hope and hopefully change and growth in the people that are watching our programs. So when I say persuasion, it goes, let's say we do work for an American Express or an ADP. We're crafting a program where we persuade the viewer to come on board with whatever American Express or ADP is selling. Now, developing those skills, or Estee Lauder or Chanel, it could be beauty, and they're in hope for the client. You know, if they're standing at a counter in Bloomingdale's, yes, their skin is going to look better and they're going to look younger and they're going to feel good. So having developed those skills initially through these corporate videos and commercials, the hope that we have is that our work ultimately makes a difference for good. So we have had the great privilege of doing work for many nonprofits and hospitals and young people. And you might know Steve Mariotti, the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, where we're crafting something. It might be educational, but we have to persuade them to view and then to buy into the education and retain it. And by retaining it and applying it, let's say in the case of Steve Mariotti and the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, these young adults will have a brighter future. They don't necessarily have to start a business, but they will be more college and career ready, and also ultimately be there for their community and be leaders for their community. So we used all those skills in telling a story. You know, we could be selling a car, but we're now transferring it to what we do to better people and make an impact in people's lives.
I totally get that. I watched many of your videos, and over the years, they've been just, you get down into the dirt or into the realness of who people are. And I think that's incredibly a talented skill to tell a story like that. Nan, what would you say is the thing that has been the inspiration in your work the most, or inspired you and others? Is my question.
I think it's twofold. Firstly, as far as the work, we're offering to students that entrepreneurship is not just opening a business, it's a career. So we're giving students, we're giving those that are going into their second lives, retired people, we're giving them opportunities to recognize the entrepreneur within themselves. Secondly, a very big thing for myself, and I think Harold will agree, through the years of owning and running Teletime Productions, we have provided careers for many, many young people who thought the only way to make a living with video would be to work for a studio, a television network, and we offered them an alternate, because not everyone's going to get that cushiony job. We offered them an opportunity, and we trained them, and we gave them livelihoods and put bread on their table, which I'm very, very proud and gives me a lot of joy.
Absolutely. I would like to hear the colliding moment when the two of you decided you were going to do this amazing project. I read about it or learned about it online. You're like, Nan, you're like, Harold, what are you really going to do in life to make money if we're going to get married?
When you say project, you mean Teletime Video or
Yes.
The project? So it was, we were dating. I picked Nan up at a red light in Brooklyn. Okay. She was driving a hot rod Mustang, and I had a little Fiat, and I handed her a note, call me, and she did. And that ended up into a boyfriend-girlfriend situation. And we were both going to Brooklyn College, and I was trying to cruise through college, taking what I thought were the easiest courses, and that was television and radio and film. And then one day in the Brooklyn College quad, Nan's looking at me. We know that we're going to get married one day. She says, so what are you going to do when you get out of college to make a living for us? I said, I'm going to be a big-time producer, director. She goes, really? So I set out to try and prove that I was right. So I did some market research, and I went to employment agencies. Back then in 1976, there was no video. There was video, but only on television, right?
Yes.
And I went to employment agencies, and the waiting rooms were loaded with people. When I finally got in, there was nothing for a college graduate really to gain. And I actually even went to call studios out of town, and then there was one offer in the Carolinas for maybe minimum wage, in a town that it would be very different than New York.
Yes.
Not as much offered, and it wasn't for me. And we were going out to a film one night in New York City, and we passed the ABC building, and there was a guard outside. I went over to him and I said, what does it take to get inside the building? Like a job, right? And he goes, I don't know. It's been 7 years. I've been trying. And then I said, oh, my God. Now, just for more background, my father, may he rest in peace, was a Holocaust survivor. And my mom took us to see him at work. He was a tailor in the garment center when New York had a garment center and clothes were being made there. And we had seen him literally in a sweatshop, behind sort of a cage and sweat. It was terrible. And the image never left me. And when he was 65, 66 years old, he started his own little company, a manufacturing company in New York, and he named it Harold and Arthur, Harold, my brother. Mm-hmm. And I wanted no part of it because of that. I was terrified by it. And so when I started realizing I'm not going to get a job, and I certainly don't want to go into my father's business, I was a waiter in a restaurant, an Italian restaurant, making nice money on the weekends, but sort of trauma hit me then. Not trauma like the people that we feature in our series, but I went into depression and didn't eat and didn't shave, but my mother made me go to school. And one day in college, Professor Gemelos held up this big machine was called a Porter Pack. If you remember, it looked like a reel-to-reel recorder. And he said, this just came out and you could record video and play it on a monitor.
Yes.
And it was portable. So I said, I have an idea. So I had an idea that sparked an idea to do retail displays with video, because it would be an attraction. Like you pass a store and you see clothing that's inside the store on a TV set. How would that happen? Because there was no idea what video was. So Nan and I took out a loan and we started what was Teletime Video. And that was the moment. And when we ended up in malls, and we would stand in front of the monitor playing in stores, and anybody looked like a business person, we would approach and say, what kind of business are you in? And then we try to get an appointment and say, hey, listen, want to bring video into your business? Now, there was no video. So if we did video for a company, we had to give them our machine.
Yeah.
Because there was Betamax was just coming out.
Talk about cutting edge and being on the forefront of something spectacular. Nan, where in the world has this business taken you that has given you the most joy? Have you traveled with it, or what's the thing?
We have traveled. We've traveled out of the country, a lot of in the country, and we met people that were so inspiring. Sometimes you think living in New York and in any big city, that if you go to a small town, what do they have? How am I going to learn from them? How's my audience going to learn from them? But instead, it's always been so enlightening. And you learn so much because, maybe they don't have the museums that we have, but they certainly are, articulate and business savvy. And, that's been a big joy for me.
Great. Awesome. Nan, what's been the biggest joy from Trauma to Triumph for you in shooting this? And I watched Bill and Sam. I haven't watched the female version part yet, but getting into those stories is just hugely.
Well, you can't believe how brave people are.
Right.
And the stamina that they have. And sometimes they take it from their past, like Sam, one of the psychologists on our program that we interviewed, Tova Friedman, and she said he took his anger and turned it into power, his persuasiveness, his willpower. Most of us, including myself, when I think back and I think about Sam's story and other Holocaust stories and other wars that the United States has been entered and our soldiers have gone through, Bill and Sam, I can't imagine being in their footsteps. A lot of us get a hangnail and the world is coming to an end, or we stub our toes. But their toe stubbing was life-changing. And in the case of Bill Vandegrift, when he came back from Vietnam, he became an alcoholic. He married, but he had children that had such challenges. And with all of that, he greets you with a smile on his face. His home is your home. His heart is your heart. He looks after me now. He calls me, how's the family? How's the old man doing?
Aw. Harold, this must have been one of the biggest projects of your life. Am I guessing that? Maybe you could just tell me a little bit about where it ignited from, maybe some of the people that helped you out with Steve Mariotti and et cetera, and just kind of expound on the profoundness of this movie.
We've done bigger things that, for example, a project, let's say, for the United States Postal Service, which required years to do, but probably nothing bigger in terms of potential impact than what this has. And it was certainly a very big project, bigger than the budgets. Nan and I gave a lot. And in fact, every player on this program, every team player on the program from the production team gave more than we asked for. Why it's profound, I think what was really cemented it for me was the night at the 92nd Street Y, when we saw the response from a very accomplished audience. And Eric Schurenberg, the CEO of Inc. magazine and Fast Company and all their media products, he's from CNBC, he's been through he has many years of experience in the business world, entrepreneurship world. And he said something like, for 45 years, Inc. magazine has been reporting enhancing the nobility of entrepreneurship and enabling entrepreneurs to achieve their dreams. Tonight I learned that entrepreneurship will also help you overcome your nightmares. So, wow, what a statement. What a statement. And why, I get the chills thinking about it. There's so many levels to gratification here. There are different ideas. The gratification is that when you see people saying, I never thought of it that way. When you see another entrepreneur who's seen the program saying that I'm miserable. Every entrepreneur thinks the world's coming to, not every, but entrepreneurs could think the world's coming to an end when a client doesn't pay a bill or somebody doesn't show up for something. This stabilizes them because you see other people that have gone through far worse than you have. And then you say, hey, it's inspiration. I can do this. Then there's a greater appreciation of entrepreneurs. Then there are people that might say, it doesn't have to be business. Like one of the women who had cancer on the women's program, how she dealt with that. And she rose and she didn't fall victimhood to her cancer. In fact, it let her drive her into accomplishment. And I'm sure, going with the nature of your program, great joy in what she's doing for other women by displaying this story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That gives me goosebumps too, thinking about, Steve just getting the whole, if he started based on his own bullying when he was a young man. So that's very, very powerful. Nan, what is the biggest takeaway that you took from this particular project? And while you're sharing, would you mind just telling everybody where we can find the film right now?
Sure. Well, we have a website. It's called Trauma to Triumph Films with an S at the end.com. You can access previews there, and then certainly you can watch the full film. But it's also going to be on PBS around the country.
It is on right now, PBS and World.
So if you access your guides, you'll be able to find it. But Cheryl, I just want to add, and I would be remiss because we are concentrating so much on Bill and Sam, because that was the survivors of war was shown at the 92nd Street Y. But I'm just going to also give you a little entree into the women's program. One featured person is Maria, and Maria never told her story. And when you asked earlier, what gives me the most pride or the most joy, I was able to work with Maria to tell her story, and it changed her life. She shared her story with her daughter, who was not even a teenager yet. She shared the story with all other members of her family who never knew it. She said how much sharing the story with us and our cameras took such a load off her shoulders.
Let me just enhance what Nan said. When she says her story, not just her story to rise and overcome, but there were, I won't reveal it here because people got to watch it, but she had horrific incidents happen to her growing up in the Dominican Republic. Not even things that you could believe, and she never revealed it. And because of Nan talking to, we wanted to feature her just based on her bio. A Hispanic woman coming here at a very young age. She was pregnant. She got divorced. She had nothing. She learned how to speak English on her own beautifully. And then it goes on and on and on and on. But she never revealed what was revealed in this video until Nan spoke to her through the weeks prior to shooting. It's a wow. And then she talks about what it was like to let that go.
So 90% of people who start a business fail in America. Would you agree with that number?
I think it's I don't know if that's the startup. Yeah, I think within 5 years, it's something after 5 years, it's probably a number like that.
Yes, because the energy, the commitment, the perseverance, all the things that you talked about can beat you up, right? And just having the faith in what it is that you started can teeter based on challenges and obstacles and cash flow and everything. So, Nan, what would you say to people? I know when I watched it, I was moved. I was like, man, if they can do it, I can do it, right? And so what would you say to young entrepreneurs that are, thinking about whether they should watch this or not if they're hearing this podcast for the first time?
Well, one thing that I have to mention is that during this pandemic, I think a lot of people looked in the mirror and they looked at themselves and they said, what do I want to be? What do I want to do? So a lot of businesses started up. What I've learned from other entrepreneurs, not just this program, but the many, many, many entrepreneurs that we've interviewed since the 1980s, I've learned that if you do encounter failure, start again. Don't let the failure keep you down. I think another financially, which is crucial, is when you start a business, you have to have at least 2 years to be able to support yourself. Because not everyone is going to get that project and get funded by Shark Tank. So you have to be, in order to give yourself a fair shot, you have to have the support for yourself and your business financially.
Yes, absolutely. And Harold, do you have anything to say to that to young entrepreneurs? I know that Napoleon Hill says, that we have to have faith and we have to have a affirmation and we have to converse to ourselves and actually ingrain it into our DNA. So I work on that every day. I've built 3 successful businesses, and starting Joyly is a new thing. I was inspired to hear that Sam started. Was it Sam that you said started his company at 65? No, who was it?
No, that was my father.
Your father. I apologize.
66. He had to close it at 68 because his health got compromised. But he started a store at 68 in Brooklyn. He couldn't handle the plant and all the employees, and he started having blood pressure, all kinds of problems. And the doctor said, "You'll die. You continue." So he sold the machines and started another business. He was 68.
Awesome. Yeah.
So the mess.
Yeah. Based on your wisdom, I'd love to hear some advice for entrepreneurs or new businesses.
I'm not sure it's wisdom as much as experience and awareness of the young population today. They're very used to having it now and being satisfied immediately. That doesn't go well with starting and growing a business. You're signaling that it takes away from after 5 years, it's toiling. For them, toil could be after a few days of rejections. Right. It doesn't work like that. And I don't believe they're conditioned. I think a lot of people are not, like Nan says, and you're going to fail. And the failure, as Mike Rubin, who started a sports company and now is a billionaire, when we interviewed him for one of the first programs that we did with Steve, he was 23 and he had a $100 million company. Now he has a multi-billion-dollar company in the sports world. But he says failure is the next bridge to success. And you have to be prepared, even though we've been doing it for 45 years, I still look at rejection and say, oh, no, how did I miss that? But I know that even though so many people told us no, we've done a lot of work with Estee Lauder, and there's this great lady, Ida Stewart, who was Mrs. Lauder's right-hand person for over 40 years and a vice president of the company, a Southern lady. And she said, we had her as a speaker once at an event. And she says, when somebody tells you N-O, no, you take that little old word and turn it around. It's O-N, because when somebody says no, you on. And that's really the way you have to look. And sometimes people are going to say, Harold, you got to stop. Okay. What did I do wrong? And then I'll continue again. But you got to keep going. And you remember the great comedian Don Rickles? Yeah, he was one of the great comedians of the last 100 years, really one of the great ones. And I remember seeing him in a show, and he told the audience, he said, I was thrown out of cafes and theaters for 20 years. He was beaten up in back alleys for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And he kept at it. And then he became a world star. So, sometimes it's, yes, you have to have that tenacity. Sometimes your product might not be right. You have to know.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So I would be remiss to not share with you the Chair of Joy experience. So you being the 40 some odd years in business, filled with joy, it's just permeating through the airwaves right now. I can feel you've lived an awesome life. Would you agree? You've lived an awesome life. You've loved all the choices you've made.
Tremendous gratitude. I don't love all the choices I've made, but they led me in different directions, and so ultimately, yes.
Yes. So sometimes you wouldn't change those things, even though they were a little difficult. So every movement choice is a movement toward the place where you are now, which is look at the project you just created. So I encourage everyone.
I just have to add that a big part of our joy as well is Harold and I, as you know, are husband and wife and partners in this wonderful program and business that we've had throughout our lives. But we have 4 boys and 3 daughter-in-laws and 8 grandchildren, which gives us a lot of joy.
Oh my gosh. So I have to take you through the Chair of Joy experience. So I've carried that chair around to about 40 cities, about 1,000 people have sat in it. And I feel like I just tell the same story every day, all day long, so that people can realize that the joy is what fuels you to those grandchildren, right? Like you started with an idea and a concept, and it feels like you guys celebrated over the time. So here's what it is really quick, if you don't mind. If you're in your house, are you both at home?
Yes.
So just think about in your house where your favorite Chair of Joy is. Like, where do you go to hang out and just take a little minute, a little quiet just for you? Where's yours, Nan?
The living room.
Okay. What kind of chair is it?
It is a club chair with a footstool.
Love it. And Harold, where's yours? If you could pick one in the house.
Does it have to be in the house?
Nope. It does not have to be in the house.
So right outside my house in my backyard, I have an outdoor man cave with a fire pit and surrounded by beautiful plants and trees in the background and music. And I have lights on the trees.
Oh,
and you take a tremendous amount of satisfaction with sitting there with a glass of wine at night. And that's like the payoff. That's the joy at the end of the day that keeps me going. Like, I won't reward myself during the day. I know that that's coming at the end of the day.
That's beautiful. And the groundbreaking conversation we have on that is, what if we did it more often during the day? What if we took some time to raise the vibration of joy in our bodies and our systems? What could that do for outcome and results? So let's continue forward. So your feet are on the ground. You're sitting both in your beautiful chairs of joy, and you're just taking a deep breath. Think of the end of the day. Oh, what so many amazing things happen. And if you could tell me, both of you, what is one thing that you hear, Nan, when you're sitting in your chair of joy?
The birds outside.
Okay. And Harold, you told me many things you can hear, but I ask people to think about what they can see and hear, and then to take an ocean breath in, which is a wave breath of 6 seconds in and 6 seconds out. And I want you to both tap into one of your most joyful memories of your entire life. So here we go.
Okay.
Yeah, just one. Just land on one juicy one. So let's take another more deep breath.
That's a hard one.
And land on one. And Harold, do you have one?
I have many. And what I will tell you that everything with my family, obviously, is of the utmost importance. But while you were talking earlier, an image did come to me, and it keeps coming back to me even now. It doesn't mean to my family that might be watching, this is the best thing that ever happened. But as a result of our doing this program, Sam Solaz, who's that survivor, the Holocaust survivor, and didn't miss a day of work up until he was 91 years old and died. Actually, it was a few days of work he missed because they had to carry him to the hospital from the plant. Lost everything in his life, because your viewers don't know what had happened to him or his entire family. And we made this film, and it had stages. And 2 years ago, it was in rough cut mode. And here where we live, the community gets together and on Yom HaShoah, which is Holocaust Remembrance Day, and has a big symposiums, if you will, and 1,300 people show up. So I suggested, I'm on the board, I said, let's show Sam's story and have him there. He doesn't live here. He lives in Queens. And his family was kind of negating that. We can't. What do we do? He has to work. It was a Sunday. He has to go to work. And I said, well, he had this amazing life, and we have 1,300 people going to be here. I'd like to show the 8 minutes that we have compiled. Well, they agreed. And during the course of it, he was tearing through the whole thing. And then he stood up, and then they gave him a standing ovation. So that was extremely joyful for me, that we were part of making that happen for this man. And his family recognized how important it was. And they were thinking, well, should we come or not? And to give him that kind of gratitude and that kind of joy, I can't express how much joy that brings.
Congratulations, Harold. That is so amazing. Thank you for sharing that story. All right. Nan, did something come up for you? Did you land on one memory of joy?
I did.
Okay.
My mother is gone about 34 years at this point. Mm-hmm. And my father became mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, father-in-law. And for many years, he was my children's only grandparent. And it gave me a lot of joy to share my family with him. And the moment that I can think of was he had, was it a Chevy, Harold, the gray car?
No, the Buick.
He had an old Buick gray car.
140,000 miles on it.
Anytime he would enter our circular driveway, he would be beeping his horn that he was there. And it gave me so much joy to see him.
Blessings. That's amazing. So what normally I do is I ask you to do one more memory of joy, but because for time's sake and because we have two of you and I haven't done a lot of Chair of Joy sessions in duality. So if we could take Nan's beep, beep, beep from her father and Harold's, Sam's amazing transformation from his entire family of gratitude for you, what would you say the connecting word between those two memories are? One connecting word. You're going to have to, I don't know if you're near each other, but if you could give the two memories one word and you can converse if you like.
Sound. I had the beep, 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 and you had the ovation.
That's a good one. The connection is an enriched life, because both of them, your father and Sam, had an enriched life. They both worked extremely hard, and the reasons, everything for your father was his family, and we learned that the reason Sam had like $100 million company and had buildings all over the country, but the reason he kept working was for his family. And the other thing psychologically was that he could see his family there, and no one can take them from him. So and that's why they kept going.
On a small scale with the beep, 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 it was recognition. And for Sam too, in the event, was recognition.
That's beautiful. So I got three connecting words. So recognition, quality of life or enhanced life, and sound. So we're going to put those all in a container. So let's put them in a container. What's the first? I'm going to let you pick the container, Nan. If you could pick a container to put these beautiful things in, something physical, what would it be?
It would be a red velvet box.
Oh, lovely. So what I just did there was I took your intangible joy and made it tangible. So now it's in a red velvet box. And Harold, we're going to fly to LaGuardia. We're going to get off the airport, and there's 10,000 people there. And you two are there, and you have this red velvet box. And they are scratching their head about this immense amount of joy that you just described that we put into this box. What could you say to them so they can start to understand how important it is to focus on what's important, and especially joy?
Ladies and gentlemen, gather round. We have landed. We're back home, and we're bringing the treasures of our life's experiences right to you in this little box. This is not the medicine man speaking. However, this is someone that is observant in all things, and our observance has led to what's important in life. And yes, it's important to go for joy, but understand what brings you to that joy. welcome to our box.
Awesome. Nan, would you like to add to it?
You know, it's funny. It was funny that you say that because we have acquaintances that they have this box called the love box. In the love box, they put all of their wishes. And every few months, they go back to that love box and they see if they fulfilled any of their wishes. And they put new ones in, they take some out.
Love that. I love that. And is there anything you'd like to add, Nan, to the statement to the crowd? Because observance and how you get there to how you get to joy is really powerful. Thank you for that, Harold.
Do I want to add something to the crowd? Kindness. Be kind. Look to your right and look to your left and see who you can help and how you can how you could share some light for them.
Awesome.
Whether it be someone getting on that airplane that needs a hand to hold or, to squeeze during takeoff or turbulence, be that person that can help.
I love that tactile approach. All right, last question in the Chair of Joy experience. If you could give that red velvet box away to someone today, who would you give it to?
Ooh.
Nan, you go first.
I think I would give it to one of my sons, who I think needs it right now.
Lovely. Lovely. And Harold?
I would give it to a couple of people. One, I would give it to my oldest son, because the oldest son is normally the oldest child is normally the one that is supposedly the one to lead the rest of the family. Yes. And I would also give one to President Biden to remind him, because I have concerns that the direction of the country, not forgetting politics, that we have to be reminded what it takes to succeed as a country, as a person, as a community. And it doesn't just come from handouts. And I'm very concerned about that, especially for the younger generation. Oh, I don't have to work. I get $300. I get unemployment. I get $300 extra. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. We will not be a country of accomplishment. So understand what's in this box. These are not given. These are developed through the decades and years and hundreds of years and generations. And that's how we'll realize joy doesn't just come. Joy comes from exercise.
Yeah. From the traumas, from the learning, from the wisdom to, that's the triumph. And I think people should try to shortcut that, as you said. Mm-hmm. So thank you. That's the Chair of Joy experience. So you have your chairs of joy. Those are now your new chairs of joy. If you'd like to, I suggest you try to get there 2 or 3 times more. Just a takeaway, Nan, if you could sit in your chair of joy 3 times a day, and if the world could stop and take a pause and sit in their chairs 3 times a day, what might that do that for the planet, for our work, for entrepreneurship, for people's hearts, hopes, etc.?
I think it would give you time to smell the roses.
And why would you want to do that?
The world is bigger than you are. And it's okay to take a step back, to be comfortable in your chair.
And to stop running around and searching, right? Like just to get very clear that joy is within. Mm-hmm. I love that. How about you, Harold?
Well, it's interesting because this morning I read an article in Inc. magazine about Warren Buffett and what his day is like forever. And he has a comfortable chair. I don't know if you've ever heard this. He really has he has his own comfortable chair in his office. And he sits in it. He reads 6 hours a day, and he thinks 1 hour. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine that? And who sits and thinks? Like today, my earphones weren't working when I go over an hour walk every morning, and they weren't working this morning. So I had to be with myself and thinking. Crazy, right? But he's 91 and he's still brilliant, and it gives you a power to sit in that chair. Okay, it could be a physical chair, it could be the chair of communicating, it could be the chair of journeying, and realize that you don't need the phone. You could rely on your own resources and realize great accomplishment and realize great things in your life. The people in Silicon Valley, the guys and gals, the ones that have the Googles and all that, they send their kids to school that does not use computers most of the day. And then to turn it off. That's what Sergey Brin says. They said, how do you suggest people learn? And he said, turn off your computer.
I love it.
The founder of Google.
This has been very enlightening and profound, and what an honor to have you both, Nan and Harold, on the show today, talking about your joy, talking about the joy of the film, Trauma to Triumphs. And I am so excited to continue to share this conversation with more and more people across the world. So, Nan, any final remarks you want to leave with us today?
No, we appreciate your kindness and your joy, and I'm going to look at that chair very differently.
Appreciate that. And Harold?
Just that things are going to happen. Stuff happens, and you could use that stuff to as a vehicle to gratitude, appreciation, and joy. Because don't let it stop you. You understand when I, a year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I couldn't walk because of my back, and I healed without having an operation. And every step I take, I ask myself, would I go through it again? All that struggle, all that pain, because it so enhanced the appreciation that I have every step I take. So, in the Bible, it says first there was darkness, first there was night, and then there was day.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's it, everybody. Thank you very much. That was really cool to hear. And for everybody listening, what's cool is we get to weave in and out of all of our emotions all day long. We get to have challenges and failures and successes and ups and downs. And at the end of the day, or even at the beginning of the day or during lunchtime, we get to sit down in our chair of joy and experience all the things that are going well. Because when we raise the vibration of joy in our own lives, we're raising the joy of everyone on the planet. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
What a pleasure it was to have Nan and Harold Klein on the show today. Both are entrepreneurs who have dedicated their life to serving others through the power of persuasion, giving hope, and offering inspirational videos. Nan believes that kindness matters and that wherever you are, you can look to the right or left and likely find someone to help. Harold is an amazing observer, and together they know how to develop skill and talent and cinematography worth watching. Both are grandparents who treasure their chair of joy. Please do look for the movie Trauma to Triumph, The Rise of the Entrepreneur. You're going to love it.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.